A couple of seconds while it connects, and then we'll have the confirmation.
Yep, you're live now.
Thank you very much. Well, good evening, members and guests, and I'd also welcome Mr. Plain here, who's going to be speaking to us a little bit later. It's nice to have members of the public come along, members of the trade come along. So item 1, members, is welcome and announcements. I am duty bound to tell you that we are live online. Welcome to the online meeting, Wednesday, 30th of September. I am Councillor Dave Harris. I am councillor for the Beerchurch ward and will be chairing the meeting this evening. Now, this meeting is being broadcast live via Zoom over the internet and on the council's YouTube channel, and will also be available to watch afterwards for those who want to. To begin with, members and guests, there are a few matters of housekeeping. Now, with the exception of the Democratic Services officers advising us, would participants please all mute their microphones until they are invited to speak. I will ask for each item of business to be presented, and then I will ask each member of the panel in turn if they wish to ask a question or comment on that particular item. At the end of each item of business, I will ask each panel member in turn to confirm audibly how they wish to vote. We may have a break at 7:30, subject to the progress of the business, and then restart afterwards. Now, I'm going to ask for introductions so we all know who we are. I'll start with Councillor Mike Hogg, my Deputy Chair, please.
Good evening, Chairman. Thank you very much. Councillor Mike Hogg, St Anne's and St John's Ward.
Okay, and you understand the procedures for the meeting, Mike?
I do indeed, sir.
Thank you, sir. Could I ask now Councillor Barton to introduce herself and confirm?
Thank you. Councillor Lynn Barton, Shrub End Ward, and understood. Thank you.
Councillor Buston, please.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Roger Buston, Prishgate Ward, understood.
Councillor Chua.
Good evening, Councillor Helen Chua, St Anne's and St John's Ward, understood. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Crowe.
Councillor Simon Crowe, Castle Ward, understood.
Thank you. Councillor Elliott.
Councillor Elliott, Tiptree Ward, I understood.
Thank you. Councillor Moore, we've got as absent this evening, so apologies has been received for Councillor Moore. Councillor Oxford.
Councillor Oxford, Highwoods Ward, understood.
Thank you. Councillor Wood.
Councillor Barbara Wood, Tiptree Ward, understood.
Thank you. And last, by no means least, Councillor Young.
Councillor Tim Young, Labour Councillor for Greensted Ward, all fully understood. Thanks, Dave.
Thank you very much. So now, item 2, members, is substitutions. And I understand that we're all bona fide members of the committee, but we haven't got a substitution for Councillor Moore. We have to note that. Is that okay, members? Okay, thank you. Urgent items. There are no urgent items scheduled for this meeting. Can I ask Mr. Ruder to introduce himself, please?
Jonathan Ruder, Licensing Food and Safety Manager.
Mrs. White?
Sarah White, Senior Licensing Officer.
And Matthew, please.
Matthew Evans, Democratic Services Officer.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I don't think I've missed anybody. Please confirm. Okay, thank you. On to item 4, declarations of interest. Members, it's your chance to invite you to declare any interest on any of the items that are on the agenda publicly and the item number if you have. Could anybody indicate if they have such an item to declare?
Chairman, if I may, can I declare a non-pecuniary interest in item A, the film show policy, in view of the fact that I'm a trustee of a building that shows films? And if we are talking about the entire policy document, could I also declare that I hold a personal licence on behalf of a registered charity?
Thank you very
Thank
much. Councillor Chua.
Thank you, Chairman. I declare a non-pecuniary interest as I'm a trustee of the Oak Tree Centre. Thank you.
Thank you. Any others, members? I see no other indications. Item 5. Members, I'll invite you as the committee to confirm as a correct record the minutes of the meeting that was held last on the 11th of August 2020. And I'm going to ask each member in turn to agree the minutes of the previous meeting. And I'm going to call out your name, wait for them to speak, and move on to the next participant to indicate whether you agree to those minutes being a true record. So I'll start with Councillor Hogg, my deputy chair.
So moved, Chairman. Seem okay to me. Thank you.
Thanks, sir. Councillor Barton.
Agreed. Thank you.
Councillor Boston.
Agreed. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Chua.
Agreed. Thank you.
Councillor Crowe.
Agree. Thank you.
Councillor Elliott.
Agree. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Oxford.
Agreed, thank you. Agreed, thank you. You're frozen.
We've lost Councillor Wood.
Agreed.
Thank you. Councillor Young.
Agreed.
Thank you very much. Matthew, could you, as a Democratic Service, could you record that vote, please?
Yes, certainly, Chairman. That was unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Item 6, General have your say. I've got one member of the public that is registered to speak at the meeting. He has submitted the following written outline of his points, which are in the notes. Would you like to address the committee, Mr. Plain, please? We're not hearing you. You're still muted, Mr. Plain.
Is that better?
Well, welcome, Mr. Plain.
Hello there. Yes. Yeah, my name's Justin Plain. I'm the proprietor of a private hire company, T&J Executive Car Services, based at Great Hawksley, just outside Colchester. I had 3 points that I'd like to address this evening. The first point was, according, I'm not sure which way round, you may have this in the notes. Do you want me to read them out gradually as I've...
Yes, that's fine, Mr. Plain.
Okay.
Yes.
I'll just put it in a rough context of what I've put down. But the first point was, why is there not a pro rata refund on licence fees if a driver wants to retire or for any other reason hand back his or her licence? The licence fee is not paid on a consideration of a licence, such as a visa maybe, but to obtain an actual licence on approval from the council. That's my first point. My second question was, why is the £50 vehicle inspection fee to be paid up front for vehicle tests on vehicles over 6 years old and no refund given if you no longer require the test, e.g. if you no longer own the vehicle? And my third and final question, and my main point this evening, as drivers are now going to be faced with some very difficult years and possibly more months and possibly years ahead, is it time we now looked at the rule of 5 years for the date of first registration on new vehicles purchased? As an analogy, I can go and purchase a 4-year-old car with 200,000 miles on the clock and obtain a licence, but cannot purchase a 6-year-old vehicle with 50 to 60,000 miles on the clock or less. If the vehicle has been looked after and well maintained, there is little difference, but a lot of less of an outlay cost to the driver. Bayborough and Mid Suffolk Council have a 7-year rule on this at purchase, which makes the purchase of a new vehicle for drivers much more financially viable. And that's my final point. That's everything.
Thank you very much. And thank you for coming along, Mr. Plain, and making those points to us. What I'd ask you to do, and if you can mute yourself, I'm going to ask Mr. Ruder to reply to the first 2 points about the £50, etc., because I've got to tell you that that's outside of the gift of this committee to set and agree and amend licence fees. But if I ask Mr. Ruder to reply to you on that point, I will then come back and allow any other committee members to respond on the second point, if that's okay. Mr. Ruder?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, Mr. Payne, you've raised some valid points, and what we can do is, I can't consider them now, but we do have to bring the taxi policy and everything back to council in November anyway, so I'll take it under consideration and we will have a look into your points raised in relation to fees. That's pretty much what I can say now, but I will get back to you in terms of an email or address you personally.
Thank you, Mr. Ruder. And your second point about the registration, of course, that is within the review of this committee, and we will be reviewing that policy on the 11th of November 2020 this year. So members here in this meeting today will have a chance to look at what you've said, consider that, and propose amendments at that time. Is that okay, Mr. Plain?
Yeah, that's great. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Thank you very much, and thanks for taking the time and trouble to come along and speak to us. Would any other member of the committee like to very briefly say a word about what Mr. Plain has said? Mr. Councillor Buston.
Thank you very much indeed, Chair. Yes, thank you for coming along and presenting to us, Mr. Plain. They're very useful points to have considered. Sadly, I only saw them this afternoon, and I believe that if we'd seen before, it might have been easier for the licensing and food safety manager to come back to with some more immediate constructive comments. But I'm pleased to see he'll take it away and he'll look at it for you. The thought that immediately came to my mind in regard to your question concerning why are fees charged up front, if you like, I believe I'm right in saying, but I'll be corrected, I'm sure, if I'm wrong, that the council is not intending in any way to make a profit out of these fees being levied. It's simply in order to try and cover the cost of the service, and the cost of putting in place the checks that are put in place before licenses and permits are issued is incurred at the beginning of the cycle rather than pro rata as the cycle continues. I don't know, I merely suggest that as a possible option as to why it's likely to be so. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Councillor Buston. Thank you. That having been, there's nobody else indicating, so I'm going to now move on to item 7, which is changes to the Hackney carriage and private hire licensing policy, and I invite the licensing officer to present this report.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm picking this one up. So this committee will be aware that it considered this matter at its last meeting. Unfortunately, a representation concerning the requirement to have an annual DBS for second owners was missed. It had been included as part of another representation comment. And so it was only when we were looking at those comments did this one come to light. So we've brought this report back to you for members just to consider that representation that's been made. I would point out that actually things have moved on a little bit since we initially put this out for consultation. And I think members will be aware that the Department of Transport's issued its statutory taxi and private hire vehicle standards, which we're intending to bring back to you at your next meeting, hopefully. And that is suggesting an annual production of a basic DBS by Hackney Carriage proprietors. So whilst that's not, whilst we don't have to do it, questions would be asked if we didn't choose to do it. Therefore, in essence, I think the committee's, although we'll bring the report back, I think the committee doesn't have a huge amount of choice in this matter. So things have moved on a little bit, but you might perhaps want to fully consider that when we bring back the report on the statutory standards, Chairman.
Thank you very much. So members, you had in your in this particular item, you've got the changes to the policy, the report, and a copy of Annex 1 of the representation that Mrs. White just referred to. Any members wish to speak on this item, please? Councillor Buston first.
Yes, thank you very much indeed, Chair. I completely understand the point I see that Mr. Daniel has made. and it's not an unreasonable point. However, I'm afraid we now live in a fast-moving and ever-changing scenario where the rules as are handed down to us and we are required to follow, which are generally quite sensible for the safety of the public, change very rapidly. And sometimes, although it may seem a bit illogical to do so, it is wise for us to comply. I have a personal instance where this affects me. I'm a trustee of the Sea Cadet unit in Colchester, as effectively a solicitor and a trustee. So thus, I never actually get involved in activities which involve the children and the cadets. Nonetheless, even as a remote trustee, I have to be DBS checked in order to be able to assist them to do what they do. And I have no connection, therefore, with training the cadets or the like at all, but I still have to be DBS checked. So whereas I understand the point that Mr. Daniel makes, I fear it is something that we now have to live with, and it is done in the interests of safety. Thank you.
Thanks to Councillor Buston. Any other members wish to speak at this time? No, members, the recommended decision is that we give full consideration to the points raised in the representation by Mr. Daniel and determine whether you, the committee, wish to recommend the changes set out in paragraphs 5.2 to 5.4 in the policy. Has anybody got a proposal? Councillor Buston?
Thank you, Chair. I'm happy, particularly bearing in mind what I've just said, so to propose. Thank you.
Have I got a seconder, please?
So moved, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Hogg. I shall now go through and take the vote. So I shall go through as I did before, members. And I'll start with my deputy chair and ask him which way he wishes to vote. Councillor
In
Hogg.
favour, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Barton.
Yeah, 4.
Thank you. Councillor Buston.
4.
Councillor Chua.
4.
Councillor Crowe.
4.
Councillor Elliott.
4.
Councillor Oxford.
4.
Councillor Wood.
4.
And Councillor Young.
4.
And Matthew, I am also 4. Matthew, could you record the vote?
Yes, thanks, Chairman. That's unanimous again. Thank you.
Thank you very much, members. Thank you. Okay. I move the item. I now move to item 8, the film classification policy, and I invite again the licensing officer to present this report.
Thank you, Chairman. That's me again. This report is coming to the committee seeking approval of a policy to enable the committee to rate previously unclassified films. I think the contents of the report are pretty self-explanatory, really. It's in essence what's suggested is that the council should follow the well-established guidelines of the British Board of Film Classification in the rating of these films, and it doesn't happen very often. In fact, it's never happened for the council yet. Has a need to rate this film, but we have had an inquiry, and therefore it's thought prudent to establish a policy to do so. Chairman, I'm happy to answer any questions, but that's all I have to say for the moment.
Thank you very much, Sarah. Any members wish to speak first? If there's no another question, I've got one question. How advanced is it that we will be having a subcommittee meeting anytime soon to discuss this, and how will it be taking place? Will we have to view this in its full, and will it be done in private, or will other councillors be invited to have a look?
I'll answer some of that. I don't know if Matthew might want to answer some of that as well, Chairman. At the moment, actually, a formal application to classify the film that we thought might be coming to you has not actually been made. So at the moment, this policy, whilst we should still proceed with it, possibly won't be used as quickly as we thought it might be. In the event that one does come to you, or one does come to you in the future, the intention is for it to be a subcommittee, so 3 members of the committee. We'd set it up in the normal way that we'd normally set up a subcommittee hearing. It would be done, you would have to view the whole film. You would have a report from officers highlighting any issues that you may wish to consider, but ultimately it would be for you to rate the film in line with, we would suggest, the BBFC guidance, Chairman. I don't know if Matthew has anything else to add on that.
No, I don't particularly, Sarah. We've made some inquiries with a view to getting potentially some training from the BBFC to assist members with rating of the films, but we're still waiting to see what happens with that. But otherwise, I think that's right. It will be a formal meeting open to members of the committee only to make their determination, and that's how it will go.
I just wondered whether there was opportunity for other councillors on this committee to look over the shoulders, as it were, to actually decide upon this, because it'll be something that we'll have to get up to fairly fast, and whether it be an opportune moment to actually allow other members of the licensing committee to jump in and, as I say, not exactly make the decision, but at least take part in, and because I can see that as a way of being coaching and training of all of us, really.
Yeah, I think that's right, Chairman. I think that would be something that would be a good idea to happen in the same way that members can come and observe other hearings for Licensing Act 2003 and driver panels to get the experience of the committee process. So yeah, I think that's a good idea.
Thank you. I've got, first of all, Councillor Young to speak.
Yes, thanks, Chair. Yeah, I probably should declare an interest because my partner works for the Curzon Cinema. So if that could be recorded, Matthew, I'd be happy if you would do that. I don't think it prevents me from talking on the issue. Hope not, anyway. Non-pecuniary, I think. Yeah, I just think we've got to be careful with film classification, because obviously there's the British Board, and I know it would only come to us in rare circumstances, but there have been occasions where local authorities have overstepped the mark on whether films can be shown in their area, and I don't think we should overstep the mark. The one that comes to mind for me is the second funniest film ever made, Monty Python's Life of Brian, which a number of local authorities banned, because they could, even though it had got a rating from the British Board. And so I think we've got to be careful with this. I know it happened very rarely, but I wouldn't want us to get into the position where we're overruling the official board that is professionally the experts to do this stuff. In fact, the story of Life of Brian is that Sue Jones-Davis, who played Judith in that film, later on became the mayor of the Welsh town in which she lived, which had banned the film. And when she was mayor, she unbanned it. So I think that was quite a good story. But just as long, I agree with you, Chair, that we have got a role to play. If one comes before us and it hasn't been classified, then I think that's our job. And I guess a group of us would then get together and look at it and see what we thought. But I just wouldn't want us to overstep the mark, because I think therein lies a huge amount of danger.
Thank you, Councillor Young. Any reaction to that, John or Sarah?
I think we would obviously bring the report, which would set out the film and what's in it. And I think obviously you would fall back on the British broadcasting system anyway, because it's been developed over many years, having worked on it myself for a theatre where I live. So I don't think we would guide you in the report, but obviously at the end of the day the ultimate decision does sit with you, but we would hope that you would follow those guides.
And Councillor Young's points about training or coaching, I mean, we would get training before that would happen, I'm guessing.
I see no reason why we can't, me and Sarah, maybe get together, pick some very, I would say, unusual films of nature, and we can practice with that using the guidance that's laid down. I think that would be quite an interesting task. Yeah, so I don't see why we can't do a training session like that. There are some out there that you can still get which aren't rated, so we could have a look at.
Thank you very much for that. Councillor Beverley Oxford, I've got next.
Thank you, Chairman. How would we stand if we didn't agree with the BBFC? They wanted one thing, we wanted something else. Who would they override us, or could we override them, or is that something that would never happen?
Having, oh, sorry, I'll let Sarah go for this.
No, you go ahead, John. It's fine.
Well, as far as I'm aware, if it's an unrated one, at the end of the day, that's a very good guide, but it's our decision. So that's where it would sit. So you would have to come to an agreement as a subcommittee to decide what you gave it. So I'd say that still sits with us. But you know, like I said, they've worked on that information for many years, and I see no reason to wander off that.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for that reaction. Thank you. I see no other speakers. Are we sure with?
Chairman, if I may, could I ask, should we make a decision on this at a subcommittee of 3, and we decided whatever that was not to the liking of the applicant, is there a right of appeal by the applicant to the full committee, to full licensing body, or where does it go from there? Thank you.
Good question.
Yeah.
Do you want to take this one, Sarah?
Oh, hang on a minute.
You're muted, Sarah.
Sorry, I actually muted myself instead of unmuted. Each application is considered on its own merits. There isn't a right of appeal to a classification that you might impose. Well, they could judicially review the decision, but beyond that, there is no right of appeal.
Okay, well, thank you for that. I shall await any further developments.
Thank you. Yeah. I feel duty bound as chair to actually invite anybody to make to any committee member to suggest any amendments to the policy as shown before we consider item 2.1, which is to look at the policy appendix A for it to be adopted. Has anybody got any suggestions that wording changes or anything they want to debate with us, share with us? Nobody's indicating. So under 2.1 members, the recommended decision is that the policy and procedure as attached in appendix A, with the proviso that we will have some training and we will have a chance to practice this at some side, be adopted. Have I got a proposer and a seconder, please?
So moved, Chairman.
Seconded.
Thank you very much, Councillor Young, Councillor Hogg. So again, I'm going to call out the members who can vote. Councillor Mike Hogg, the Deputy Chair, first of all.
Agreed, Chairman.
Councillor Barton.
Agreed.
Councillor Buston.
For.
Councillor Choa.
Agreed.
Councillor Crowe.
Agreed.
Councillor Elliott.
Agreed.
Councillor Oxford.
Agreed.
Councillor Wood.
Agreed.
And Councillor Young.
The town was Aberystwyth, by the way, and 4.
Thank you very much, and I am also for. Matthew, could you confirm the vote, please?
Yes, certainly, Chairman. That was unanimous again. Thank you.
Okay. And may I say, members, that I'm very proud as chair of all the way that you conduct the vote there, because I think it's sort of seamless and you couldn't have wished of any better. So thank you very much the way you conducted that vote. Thank you. Item 9 is the Licensing Act 2003, the Statement of Licensing Policy, approval for consultation purposes. And I invite the licensing officer to present the report. And just to let you know, all the way through, the policy is highlighted in bold letters, the changes that are suggested that's going to be consulted on. Anyway, I invite the licensing officer to present the report, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, so obviously with what we've been having over the last several months, as you're well aware, my team and everyone are deep in depth dealing with COVID issues quite on a daily basis. One of the things we have to statutorily do is obviously review the licensing policy, and it's due to come in on the 1st of January. However, with the current climate, we didn't want to, we haven't got enough time to sit and assess every single part. And some of the work we would like to do in relation to, say, 15-minute town centres and stuff in relation to how we get the towns working better in the future. And in light of how businesses are probably struggling now, we thought it would be best to do a light touch approach to the policy to make changes to various areas. So I can run through them. So we've mentioned the new DIS system that PubWatch use as a way of monitoring problems in the town. Working with the bid, we put that in the policy in order to demonstrate that, you know, we do actually do a lot of work, and Sam's very good with working with businesses, especially in light of COVID issues. We've also put in there some bits that were missing, basically, not missing per se, but needed a bit more explanation. So child sexual exploitation, working to prevent terrorism, equality and diversity, making sure that's more prevalent within the policy. We've also got some less interesting things in it. So HMRC and the tax checks that need to be added, right to work checks. Obviously, I've mentioned the town centre zone with regards to looking at that in the future. We've also put in there about litter. So what we expect businesses to do a bit more about litter in front of their businesses. And also, obviously, we've got the pavement permits at the moment. So they're also, it's referred to that within the new policy. And then finally, we've had, I wouldn't say, a number of issues with designated premise supervisors. So we've updated our policy in relation to what we expect, what can be done in relation to issues that come out of problem businesses. So they're kind of like the changes. So actually, I would say it's quite a lot of change, but it's light touch. It's just mainly making it clearer, updating it, and then hopefully we want to get it in place after consultation, hopefully, you know, because obviously it'll have to come back. And then next year, when we have I would say more time to assess the outcome of what's happened over the past 6-7 months, possibly even longer, and try and see if we can make it a better policy that way and more inclusive of, because we want to bring in together with the daytime economy and the evening economy and the nighttime economy. So there's quite a big project for Sarah, me, and the team to carry out. So that's why it's light touch. And I'll pass it back to you for questions.
Thank you very much, John. Councillor Beverley Oxford first.
Thank you, Chairman. The one question I have got is about the tables and chairs on the highway. It doesn't actually, as far as I can read here, it doesn't actually say that where you want to put your table and chairs on the whatever path you're going to put it on, that the path is wide enough to allow buggies, wheelchairs, etc. to actually get past. We do know of one by the town hall that continually puts its barriers out. So sometimes it is quite difficult to get through, but there isn't anything in the policy to say, well, if you're going to have a permit, you must actually demonstrate that the path is wide enough for you to do this in the first place. Is that going to be looked at in the future, or was that just sort of an oversight?
Can I come back in, Chair?
Yes, please.
That is already looked at. It is in the policy. So this in the licensing policy, it just makes reference to the pavement permits. There actually is a separate policy for that. Now, if there is an issue, then I need to know, because obviously I will investigate, because pretty much it's my team that issue all the permits, but we work very closely with highways at Essex County Council, and they, within their what are called site-specific conditions, would specify the distance, for example, that you have to have between furniture, the pathway, the road, etc., the 1.5 meters to 1.80 meters, depending on what the situation is. So if there is an issue, then just send me an email and we'll look into it.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much, John. And thank you for that question, Beverley. Councillor Buston.
Thank you very much indeed, Chair. This item is probably one of the most significant items that we have to consider. The fact that it seems quite easy in the way it's presented to us and how it flows is, I would suggest, a tribute to how well our licensing officers put these things together for us, and indeed have done so for all the years that I've sat in various capacities on the licensing committee. Basically, they make our job as members quite easy to undertake. The licensing policy is a big piece of work. It's a continual piece of work. It's work in progress. It will never not be work in progress, because however much we like to think we've got it buttoned up, we haven't got it buttoned up, because things change. It will rain tomorrow. Things will be different. So for them to keep their eyes on this particular ball for us is remarkably valuable. And it's remarkably valuable because the licensing policy, the statement of licensing policy, actually underpins everything that we do and can do as a committee. If it's not in the licensing policy statement, then we're going to have amazing difficulty in trying to bring it in if it is not there. And the reason we want to do this is for the safety of the public. That's the only reason this is in place, and that's the only reason for us to be considering it further. Not a question, that's a statement, which I hope we can all accept. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Buston. Good points made. Any other speakers? Molly?
Yes, please, Chairman.
Yeah, Councillor Barton, thank you.
Sorry, yeah, sorry, doing the wrong system there. Yeah, quite some years ago, I did try to get a policy together, because a lot of what other authorities did on pavement cafes. But at that time, there was some confusion as to whether Essex County Council were responsible or Colchester Borough Council. So nothing came of it. Now it seems that we have got a policy and we've taken responsibility for it. Can you just clarify, in the policy, is there anything about barriers around these tables? Because I did have complaints from partially sighted people that they find it really difficult to negotiate when there's tables sticking out all over the place. So is there a policy that people have to contain their area with barriers, please? Thank you.
Yes, yeah, there is. In the policy, they have to have specific barriers. Oliver will always specify they have to be solid barriers to protect the area to which the tables and chairs are set, and they're not allowed to go outside that area. That's kind of a primary FAC with regards to the permit, in order to make sure that people understand where the definition and barriers are to where you can walk and where you can sit. So there is in the policy about partially sighted, etc.
Brilliant. Thank you very much for clarifying that. Thanks.
Thank you for that, Councillor Barton. Thank you. I've got a couple of questions of my own, because I've looked at where the bold type is, and I know this is going out to consultation, but the first question really is, how are we going to maximise that consultation? And I'm assuming it goes to the whole town and to all the premises, etc., for their views on it. So that's the first question.
Yes, Chair. We the work is where credit's due. It's Sarah. She does amazing work on these policies, and I think we've take great depth. We've got loads of information. We've got all their addresses, and yes, we do generally first of all is send it out to all the businesses in order to let them know that the consultation's out there. We also we'll send it to Sam at the bid, so they will be notified. And obviously it's put up on our website and it's sent to all the responsible authorities as well. So, and obviously councillors themselves and parish councillors. So everyone gets notified that it's there for consultation. So I think that's about as wide as we can get it. And hopefully we'll get some feedback.
Thank you for that, John. My second question is about the DISC, D-I-S-C. To the casual reader, they wouldn't know what DISC means. So I wonder whether that could be thought about before we put it out to consultation, whether the explanation or in brackets what those four letters mean. Is that okay to do that?
Yes, I can't, if I have to be honest with you, I can't remember what this stands for either. I just know it's an identification system in order that they can share across the town people who have been banned or been in trouble for some reason. But I don't see any reason why we can't put the full abbreviated version in.
And I note you did highlight this in your remarks, John, about the litter and the sentences in there now. I'm personally very happy, and I'm hoping that certainly the ward councillors in the town centre are very happy as well. Councillor Crowe, for example, about the obligation by the premises licenses to actually work with the council, provide litter bins and do clear ups, and I think that's really sound. Are we expecting much of a putback on that when you asked in consultation from the town centre managers?
If I don't know, to be honest with you. I mean, in the main, where we have worked with businesses when we have an issue, they have generally worked with us as soon as we've got involved. So I would say I don't think we will have an issue, but I can't say we won't. So,
but we'll soon know. And the last item is about the sex establishments. That's a new item in this policy. We've got a separate, as I'm acutely aware of, the statements that are in. You've now copied them right across and put them into this policy. Is there a reason for that? And if it is, I'm quite supportive of the idea that's included in the way you've documented it. But is there a reason for that copy across?
Sarah, do you want to? I think it's just the case. It's just to make sure that we link it up.
Yeah.
It's pretty much because obviously they have premises license as well as a sex establishment license. So I think it's just a case of making sure that they're both linked across each other.
Yeah, Chairman, if I can come in on that, it's exactly as John said. It's a question of linking the two together, but also the sex establishment, the requirement to have a license only kicks in if you have 12 or more occasions a year. So under that you'd have exemptions, but it might still be going on in licensed premises. So it's just not prudent to put it in the licensing policy, as well as having our own sex establishment policy, which obviously deals with sex establishments themselves, if that makes sense.
It does. Thank you very much. Thank you. Councillor Wood, you're holding your hand up. Thank you.
Yes, having read the document, the policy document, I found a number of typo errors. I mean, I'm sure we don't want to go through them tonight, but shall I contact someone tomorrow and go through them with them?
You got the missing H. I noticed the missing H.
Yes, yes, I got that one. Yes, I've got a few others as well.
That's absolutely fine. I think we stare at these things so much sometimes that we can miss stuff, and we see what we want to see sometimes, is all I'll say on that one.
Yes. Would you like me to contact you tomorrow, or either of you?
Absolutely fine. Yeah.
Okay, I'll do that then. Okay.
Councillor Wood, thank you very much for that. Thank you. That's much appreciated. That's very helpful. Thank you. Because it would be good to have it put right before it goes out for the consultation. It is a 2021-26 policy. We have got time to do this, I'm assuming, John and Sarah, that to consult and then come back and then agree at some time in 2021?
Yes, we have. It's tight, but we have time to do it for consultation.
Thank you. Well, I've got no other speakers. Apologies, I took 4 or 5 questions there. I do apologise for that. But the recommendation in front of you, members, is that the draft statement, of course, statement of licence policy be approved for consultation purposes. You will have, of course, a further bite of the cherry when it comes back with amendments, etc., in the future, as John has just said. So does anybody want to propose?
So moved, Chairman.
Thank you very much. And Councillor Buston second. Thank you. I'll do exactly what I did before. You're actually in the habit of this. You're doing so well at this. Councillor Hogg, how would you vote, please?
4.
Councillor Barton?
4.
Councillor Buston?
4.
Councillor Chua?
4.
Councillor Crowe?
4.
Councillor Elliott?
4.
Councillor Oxford?
4.
Councillor Wood?
4.
And Councillor Young?
4.
And myself, I'm voting 4 as well. Matthew, could you confirm the vote, please?
Yeah, thanks, Chairman. That's unanimous again. Thank you.
Thank you very much, members. You will get that back with a piece of work later in our work year. Thank you very much.
Can't wait, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Councillor Hogg. Item 10, members, the Licensing Committee Work Programme 2021, and I invite Matthew Evans to present the report, please.
Thank you, Chair. There's not a lot of change in this report. There's the removal of the CCTV policy, which you'll be aware of. That's been bumped up to next meeting in November. And other than that, everything is settling in as previously expected. So if there are any questions or comments, happy to take them. But otherwise, that's the report there, which is just for you to note.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any members wish to speak? Okay.
I think we've got plenty on our hands, Chairman.
Okay, so we'll just ask to note. There's no need to vote on that one then, Matthew. Could you confirm?
No, just for noting, Chair. Thanks.
Thank you very much. So I shall see you next at the next meeting, the 11th of November, I understand. We've got a full agenda on that occasion as well. So thank you, members, for the seamless way you've debated tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman, for chairing so well.
Thank you and good night.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you.
Good night, Joe.